Elizabeth, she's the senior director of global engagement up at UVA, and so we've been working with her in the office of engagement for years. So Elizabeth, thanks for helping us make this happen. It is much appreciated. And then I certainly have to thank Drew. So Drew from Swann Ave Market is really responsible for making this happen. So yeah, Drew is currently called iPad. You see him there. It's his undercover, secret name. But they've been great. They're the end of our block, and we buy all our wine from them. They got some great craft beers. Their sandwiches are absolutely delicious. They were open all through the COVID. Just a great neighbor. So if you haven't had a sandwich or stopped by, I want to encourage you to, get your wine and beer from Drew and the folks down at Swann Ave Market, because it's really awesome. And then finally, I know we've got some people on from the winery, but Emily, thank you so much. Looking forward to hearing more about Terra de Oro, and I was looking today that you're out in the gold country in California, I guess between Sacramento and you said Lake Tahoe. So I'm sure that's a beautiful area. I know you went to school up in Eastern Washington. So we're looking forward to hearing more, learning about these wines. I can tell you I've already had half a glass of wine and it was outstanding. So we do appreciate it. So for anyone that I haven't met, I'll start and we'll go around. Steve, my wife Laura, also with the UVA club. You guys are such good friends. I'm really pleased we got some new faces and folks I hadn't seen in a while. So just enjoy the evening, and hopefully we'll catch up live soon. Okay. Why don't we go? I'll go around the horn. Julie, you're next up in my view. You want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. So hi, my name is Julie, and I work for the Heritage Collection out at the Trinchero Family Estates. I actually work for Jeff, who's next to me on the in our little crazy little squares here. Yeah, and I represent Emily, and of course Carlo Trinchero, who is jumping back on the call. He had a little bit of a hardship getting on to beginning, and I'm also going to be your Zoom moderator tonight. So we really appreciate all of you for jumping on with us. The idea of virtual is phenomenal, and every time everyone steps out of the box to be like, you know what, I'm going to log on and do something like this, it's great for me, because part of my job, or a lot of my job, pre-COVID was doing a lot, big, large-scale events. So it's fantastic that you all took the time, and of course, Drew, for getting us involved. So thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Jeff.
Thank you, Steve. I live here in Tampa, so and I know Drew, and I go way back. I mean, my boys know Drew's mom, and she's helped us in so many different ways. I mean, with all the tutoring and everything else. So we got a personal relationship here. So she's been, Drew's mom's been amazing to us, and I've been fortunate to build a relationship with Drew. But I've been with Trinchero for 23 years. I've been in the wine industry for 32. So I'll get into some of the wines before I pass it off to Emily and Carlo. But really, what you're about to experience tonight is going to be truly special, because you're going to see some of these wines that are amazing. And once you find out more about it and what Drew was able to set up with us, it's pretty special.
Okay, wonderful. I'm glad we have some wine PhDs. I think the rest of us are first years in our wine knowledge. Speaking of first years, Sam Green, are you Sam, you want to say hi as our young alumni representative?
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the young alum chair, class of 2015. So I'm the young boy in the group. Super excited about this. I love wine. And it's good to see people that I haven't seen in a long time with COVID. So it should be fun. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, Sam, White Claw doesn't count as wine.
We're all set up here.
Well, Sam is in his new home there, so.
Yeah. Although I could bring the White Claw out, but.
No. Okay, Stephanie, you're up next, live from Laura's kitchen.
Yes, I'm actually not socially distancing for once, which feels really good because I've been trapped in my own house. So I'm just basically worked my way into Laura and Steve.
There it is.
Very excited.
Everybody see me?
Yes, we can, Carla.
Everybody hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
So just
cannot
super
hear
excited. Looking forward to seeing everybody's face and chatting today. Learning about some good wines.
okay, the Marshes.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Gail Marsh, the vice president of the club. This is Justin Marsh, I forget what his job is right now, secretary? I don't know.
I think so.
We switch around. And we're just excited to be here and enjoy some wine and glad to see everybody.
Lovers. And then Lee, how you been? Where are you right now? Good to see you.
Your friends.
Hi, I traveled to Alexandria, Virginia, and I'm visiting my daughter and son-in-law who are also Wahoos, classes of, I think, 2001 and 2002. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. I went by, Swann Avenue was gracious enough to prepare my package ahead of time and let me pick it up. So I hit the road with the wine, and we're in Alexandria.
Oh, wonderful.
Well played.
I think we'll have folks joining us shortly, also from Alexandria, Audra. So yeah, you may have some drinking buddies here in a moment. I think Audra's signing on as we speak. I'll come back to Sylvia, Kay, and Travis. Thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, so we are just basically hangers on to your party. Honorary UVA. The Marshes were kind enough to invite us to join, and so thank you for including us. We love wine. We know a lot of you, and we've been to more UVA alumni events, and I've been to my own alumni events. So you guys do it well, so thank you.
Wonderful. And then the mothers.
Hi, I'm Mandy Muller. This is my husband, Matt. I'm the president of the club, and Matt has to do ancillary duties that I thrust upon him. And I'm the current president of the club, and we both graduated undergrad in '97. I graduated law school in 2000.
And I'd like to just thank my fishing guide from last week, and I got a picture of the guy right here.
Ah, nice fish.
Yeah,
And Matt
awesome.
rented a boat and took us fishing and lobstering. That was a good time.
We pillaged the sea.
Yeah, it was a bad week to be at Blackfin Tuna. All right, and then our fearless treasurer, Mark Samago.
I can't figure out how the Hollywood squares work here because everybody's all over the place out of order. But I'm Mark Semago. For those of you that don't know me, I do control the massive financial portfolio that is the UVA Club of Tampa Bay. And my wife will be here. Rachel will be here shortly. She's more of the enjoyer of the grape than I am. But if we had a bourbon tasting, I definitely would probably be hosting it here at the house.
That's our next event.
Look forward to this evening.
And Mark is our primary source for convalescent plasma.
Yes. I have the antibodies now.
And Emily, any few more words?
Sorry. I'm also, I guess, getting used to the Zoom thing too. I'm just excited to be here with you guys. I was telling Steve earlier, I'm just as isolated as everybody else, so I'm glad when I get to do these things and see real people. Like, I know it's virtual, but thanks for joining me and being my friends and hanging out for the evening.
You bet. And then Christine, it's so good to see you. Thanks, I'm glad you could join us.
Hi, everybody. You see how long this hair is?
I know, we haven't seen you in 5 years. It's probably like, what happened to you?
So I used to live in Tampa and got to spend a lot of time with many of you. And I'm spending the summer in New Jersey with my family since we are all hiding out together, and I can do that and work remotely. And I'm just glad to have the chance to see everyone. I have one of the wines. I managed to get one of the wines, and I'm just going to drink that.
Well,
So
enjoy.
thanks for including me.
It's so good to see you. And then John Armstrong, looks like you're somewhere up on the lawn.
It's a nice place to be virtually. John Armstrong, I am School of Medicine, class of '88, and a surgeon at the University of South Florida. My home is in Ocala, and I have a trauma center network that I lead across the state. And I share that with you because I want to do a shout out to Drew. I faced an unexpected trip away from Tampa and thus could not pick up the wine. And what he did was to drive to Ocala with my 3 bottles of wine.
Wow.
He went above and beyond, and I think, he's an honorary who based on that alone. I'm looking forward to a great evening on the corner, drinking some fine wine.
And it's terrifying just going to Ocala as it is.
Right. You can have a Little John's, and everyone make sure you buy a case of wine from Drew after the event. And then a few more folks. So is it Blythe? I don't think I've met you before, but Blythe, you could join us.
Thanks. McIntyre 88, and my husband started in 87. He might be joining at some point. And we are splitting our time. So we spend part of the year down on Longboat Key. So I've been trying to get engaged with the UVA stuff down in the Bay Area. So, hello, greetings from Atlanta though right now.
Okay. Well, certainly anytime you're in town, as things open up, we're always trying to do something. We have a number of Darden grads, so welcome. Glad you could join us.
Thanks.
And then I see Audrey and KZ from Alexandria. Looks like a nice evening. Good to see you guys.
Hey, hi.
Hey.
It's a lovely evening. That's why we're sitting outside for a little bit because it's been beautiful today. So greetings from Old Town.
Yeah. Audrey's a past president, and we joined Audrey and KZ to go to that Notre Dame game.
Yes.
Up in Chicago. Elizabeth, if you recall, they were part of that entourage that made the trip out there. That was a fun weekend.
It was a really fun weekend. Even though he went to Notre Dame, we'll let him slide and join us today. So,
He's in the ACC now.
Mad shout out to Drew as well. He actually made sure that we had a wine pickup place here in Alexandria that was 2 miles from the house. And also that discovery let us learn that wine shop has an incredible growler tap house. So yay, Drew, for pointing us towards Unwind.
Please tell them they can ship me beer.
Absolutely. We can ship you beer. We have 8 cases from Vermont in the closet right now, so we're happy to.
But we call it salsa when we
we'll
ship
just mail you some salsa.
There we go. Perfect.
Well, okay, where are you? Because Lee and her family, they're down the street, I think, from you.
Oh, yeah? Hi, Lee. We're on St. Athos.
You have to say what the wine shop was now. We're in Beverly Hills. Where did you guys go?
We went to Unwind in Bradley Center.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, but they said that the one in Bellhaven is the one that has all of the 20-some taps of awesome beer. So good to know. Who knew?
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, then I see Polly. Glad you can make it.
Hi. So I know about half. I'm Polly Pickering. I'm Commerce School class of '86. I'm here with my kid. He's now legal, so I've got somebody else to drink with. Yay. And I've been stuck in Seminole Heights since the lockdown. But it's not a bad place to be. Plenty of places to go pick up, food and everything. So it's not too bad, and working from home.
All right, well, great to see you, and make sure your son has a glass there. So, and then Carlo, you want to say hi to us?
Unmute. There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Carlo Trinchero. I obviously work with Emily. I'm out here in Napa Valley. Currently, I'm in my RV sitting here. It's the only quiet place away from my 2 kids. So I'm just sitting out here right now. So.
Well, thanks for joining. I fully expect to have kids or dogs or something running through this wine tasting at some point. So that's quite all right. We're very family friendly.
Awesome.
And then I see Sylvia is back with us. Sylvia, we want to introduce and say hi to everybody.
Yeah, hey.
Hi, it's Sylvia. I'm over here in Pinellas County. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I was McIntyre School of Commerce, 1989, and I've, been doing a lot of the sheltering in place and hope to get out this weekend and looking forward to this. I think it'll be a lot of fun. And if you hear a dog barking, that's my chocolate lab puppy, who's now over 70 pounds and 8 months old. So.
All right. Well, certainly, Sylvia, I hope that things are back to normal when Faux Field rolls around again. I know you're always good about making that event.
Yeah, I left the dog, as soon as we were allowed to go do things because I hadn't had my hair cut in 5 months. So I left the puppy and I let him out around, and he dug a hole in my carpet because I was gone too long. So I'm working on lining a babysitter up for all weekend plans going forward. So hopefully,
how precious. All right, and then I think I've gotten everybody. Apologies if I missed, but Drew, thank you so much. You've got a lot of fans on this virtual Zoom tonight. Thanks for being such a good partner with us and making such good sandwiches. So thank you, Drew.
It's my pleasure. I'm glad that you guys latched onto this concept. I was trying to find ways to have events like this, and all this came from Steve coming in for some sandwiches and us just talking. So it shows how determination and a little bit of shelter shock can make things happen. So I'm excited to introduce you guys to the Trinchero family, and excited to introduce the Trinchero family to UVA Tampa.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Drew. I think I need to turn it over. I guess it would be Julie.
Yeah.
All
right, everybody. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen and a couple of Zoom things. If you would just keep yourself on mute, and if off video if you find that you're having some resistance or it's blurry, you might want to take yourself off video. In regard to questions, Emily and Carlo, they have 3 lookbook slides throughout this presentation. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. And then during that specific slide, which is just a bunch of amazing iPhone shots that Emily took out of the vineyards for us in Amador, we'll address the questions then. I'll be monitoring the chat box. Jeff will be monitoring the chat box, so we will make sure everything gets answered. And at this point, I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Barklage. So let me hit share. Are we all actually looking at the Terra d'Oro presentation? Yes?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well then,
Thank you.
Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you to everyone over at UVA and Drew. I mean, thank you again for putting this all together. I wanted to put this in perspective, and like I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for 32 years, and you guys are about to experience something that's pretty special. And I want to put it in a perspective before I pass it off to Emily and Carlo. But you're going to taste 3 wines tonight, and I know Emily's very humbled, but I want to kind of take you through this and kind of, let you know a little sneak peek behind the curtain before we get into this. But you're going to be tasting a white wine, the Chenin Blanc Viognier, that, has received 3 years in a row 90+ ratings, and truly receiving some great press over the years, and you'll be able to experience that. We're going to also take you down this journey, and you're gonna try a wine that 131-year-old vines, which is truly special, that you don't see nowadays. And to be able to try a wine like this and during this virtual event is pretty special. And we're fortunate that Drew has this wine, that he's able to showcase it and offer something that you're not going to find every day. You really won't. And he was fortunate, and we were fortunate that he wanted to bring it in, and you're going to experience it tonight. The last wine is the Terra d'Oro is the Barbera. And to understand what this wine is all about, the wine enthusiast came out with some accolades, and they rated this wine one of the top 100 wines of the year for this specific vintage. So to understand this and what this means, the wine enthusiasts, they will taste in a given year 24,000 wines in a given year. 24,000. Now, and these are individuals that understand what they're doing and what they're talking about, and they got great palates. They will rank, and they had the top 100 best buys, they had the top 100 seller selections, and then they come back and they have best of the best. So of the 24,000 wines they taste, they will select 100 wines that they consider best of the best. And one of those wines you'll be trying tonight is the Barbera. The TDO Barbera was rated in the top 100 of 24,000 wines that they tasted during that year. So we're fortunate that Drew wanted to do this, and we talked to him, and we brought this wine in, and you're going to experience it tonight. So kind of to set the table and how special it is with the 3 wines you're going to taste, it's truly amazing. So I know, Drew, did you want to, before I pass it off to Emily, did you want to say anything else? I know you made a few comments. Did you want to add anything else?
Sorry about that. My daughter had a bit of an iPad malfunction. But yeah, no, this is an amazing program, and it fits directly in with what I saw Swann as being. The place where you can get special things, not things that you find at every grocery store or liquor store, things that are different and showcase just how special these wineries are. American wine has grown and become such an amazing thing, and to be able to carry a top 100 wine in a little convenience store that my dad once called my mom from to check on her and the kids after he had a harebrained idea to move to Florida is just amazing.
Well, it is, Drew, and that's what makes it so special for tonight, and not only for tonight, but beyond that. And with Drew and myself in our relationship, and with myself locally, and I take it personally. So there's going to be some wines, and we'll get into it at the end of the program, that Drew is going to be highlighting and talking about and being able to offer to everyone on this call. So truly special. So thank you, Drew. So with that, we have 2 special guests, and before I, pass it off to Emily, and we're fortunate that Carlo Trinchero, a family member, right? And there's so much going on in Napa right now, and he's out there with Harvest, and Emily too. We're fortunate that Carlo was able to jump on and be part of this. So he's busy. He has a lot going on, and with the family and also with the winery. So, but the fact that Carlo is here, and you'll get some insight from him, and he'll have some questions to Emily. But we're fortunate that to have Carlo on this call. So, and I'll pass it off to Emily. But Emily's been with us. She came on board in 2017, and an amazing winemaker. And you can see that tonight with the wines that you're about to experience. So she's been making wines for over 8 years, right, Emily? So truly blessed to have her, and you're going to find out a lot. Any questions or any insight or anything you need to know, put them in the chat bar, and we'll ask Emily these questions. But an amazing platform that you should take advantage of, and as we go through and taste all these wines. So with that, Emily, I'm going to pass it off to you and take us through these special wines.
All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you again to everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is a lot of fun. I hope it's all up and up from here. There's still wine to be tasted and talked about and dissected and all that good stuff. I want this to be your tasting. So if I'm not touching on something that you guys want to hear about, don't be afraid to ask. I love answering all of your questions, no matter what they are. We can get all into the nitty gritty, deep, dark side of wine, or we can just talk about aromatics and pairings and all the glorious romance of it. So just keep that in mind. I'm a total open book, and I'm here for you guys. So Terra de Oro has been around for almost 50 years. The winery was established in 1973. We're in Amador County, which is a really small region. The region prior to Prohibition had been really, really booming. So we touched on that we're located in, the gold region of California. This entire region was established off of, people moving west looking for their fortune in gold that's here in the hills. And as those people migrated over, they came with grapevines in their bags. They came over, they started putting vineyards into the ground, and they propagated them. And so prior to Prohibition, Amador County was the largest growing region in California. We had over 100 wineries, which was more than Napa and Sonoma combined. But Prohibition really, really destroyed the area, unfortunately, when it came to wineries. There was one winery that survived, and that winery was able to survive because they made sacramental wine. And that was really the only way you could get through Prohibition in our region. And unfortunately, it took a long time for another winery to really get going in the area. And it was a lot of it had to do with the work of the Trinchero family coming to the area, realizing that there were such great wines here. And then people got word that there was wineries out here. And that's when Carrie got, in '73, moved out here and established a winery that was at the time called Montevina. We've since evolved the name into Terra de Oro. Oh, there you go. Carla has a bottle of old Montevina, which is pretty cool. I might have to go over and steal that from you one of these days.
I don't know if you're going to steal this one, but I'll get you one.
That's right. I've got an old one behind me too. I think from 78.
Ooh, you got me. I'm only 87, so.
Oh, ooh, it's all a game, right? So, and then in 1981, Jeff Myers is my boss to this day, but he joined the winery in '81. And he started off as an enologist. I know he did some sales, he did some vineyard. He kind of did a little bit of everything at the winery and is now the VP and general manager. And then in '88, as luck would have it, the Gott family was ready to get out of the business here at Montevina. And luckily, the Trinchero family was looking to acquire. And it was the first winery outside the Sutter Home Winery that they had looked to purchase. And so we were the first winery that they had purchased in '88, and we've maintained a solid relationship, obviously, within the family for a long time. You can see it through the map there. We started to acquire different vineyards. We purchased some. The D'Agostino vineyard was planted in the 1950s, and some of the vines there date back over 150 years. Then we purchased another ranch called Farnham, which is where our SHR vineyard is. It's another one of our single vineyards. It's a really unique vineyard that's planted to be a field blend. Then we purchased Burke Ranch, which was completely undeveloped land. It's one of our largest vineyards that we have, and it's planted to, I believe there's 20 different varieties planted in that one vineyard and multiple clones on top of that. It's a really cool vineyard. It's one of my favorite spots to go to.
You know why we planted that, Emily? You know whose idea that was?
All the different varieties?
Yeah.
I'm guessing it was Wild Man Jeff.
Jeff and my Uncle Bob, yeah, they decided
really?
to try all the, that's why there's all those random Italian varietals, because they wanted to see what would actually work. And back then, I mean, it still is the Wild West, but back then it was even more so. So that vineyard's, like you said, that's one of my favorite vineyards just to go walk around in, because you just see all sorts of cool stuff in there. But that's how it was, I guess, back then. Yeah,
it's a cool vineyard. There's a lot of remnants of the gold rush in that one vineyard. There's two tombs, two graves of two gentlemen that died in a mining accident that are there. And there's an old slaughterhouse. It's incredibly creepy, but also cool at the same time. It's one of my favorite places to go and just sit. It's I'm the kind of person that likes cemeteries. I'm a little weird like that. So anything old and kind of decrepit is my jam. So that vineyard, it really speaks to my heart. Our winery now started production in the 2000s. It was I believe it was a 5 to 6 year project. You might know better, Carlo, but
it was a pretty big project. And the reality is we invested heavily up there, not only because of the potential, but I mean, that area, Amador County, is very near and dear to the family's heart. And the fact that's where a man named Daryl Cordy told my Uncle Bob to go get Zinfandel back in the early 60s, which he said, go talk to a guy named Ken Deaver. This guy is a great guy. He's huge, like huge man. He's just a giant. All the Deavers are. And they grow the best Zinfandel. And we're going to get into that wine later. But that eventually got my Uncle Bob interested up there. And that actually, some Amador is the birth of white Zinfandel. Not these exact wines, but that's the Zinfandel that he decided to Signet off some juice, make it a little more, robust to Zinfandel, more robust like a Primitivo, but he had that extra stuff over. So this property is not only, an amazing location, it's beautiful. It's probably just as important, if not more, than Sutter Home itself, because Sutter Home wouldn't be Sutter Home if we didn't go up there. So no pressure, Emily, just knock him dead up there,
Yeah, thanks. No pressure. But, it's a great place to be. And I was able to join the team. This is my 4th vintage now. Gosh, time's flown. So I joined here in 2017. Prior to coming here, I made wine in Washington State. I was actually born and raised in the Seattle area. If you're familiar with the winery Chateau Ste. Michelle, I was actually born and raised probably about a mile from there. No idea I was going to go into the wine industry, but I used to spend weekends there with my dad feeding the ducks, and they used to have salmon ladders there. And so we'd go and you could go and fish the salmon ladders every now and then. And I'm sure I ran after way too many peacocks and think that they have all sorts of wildlife and insanity on that property. And it was just a great place to grow up as a kid to have that at my fingertips. And then I went to Eastern Washington University for college. I thought I was going to become a research scientist. I always had a more scientific mind. I like to break things down and think of things in pieces. And so I got a degree in biotechnology and biochemistry. And then I went and I worked at the VA hospital in Seattle. I did research on type 1 diabetes. And I really, really enjoyed what I was doing. But as I was living in Seattle, I started working in tasting rooms. And then when you're in a tasting room, you're tasting wine all the time. And I started realizing how much science there was in wine. And it just seemed a lot more fun, honestly. And so I ended up quitting my job and moved over to Eastern Washington for a temporary position when I was 25. And my parents have finally realized that, I'm forgiven and it's become an actual career. They thought I was absolutely insane to do this. And after a year at that winery, I moved to a company called Walluk Wine Company. And I was there for almost 10 years. I was there for about 9 years. I started off as a lab tech. And as the company grew, I was able to grow with it. And so I moved from lab tech up to director of winemaking in a period of 9 years. Just learning and trying new things and trying to think outside the box. While I was there, I was overseeing about 1 million cases of production for 25 different clients. And when you work for other people, eventually they don't care about your own ideas. And so as my own winemaking started to take shape, it made sense for me to find another outlet. And that's when this opportunity with Terra came up, and I couldn't be happier to be at this place. So.
Well, we couldn't be happier to have you. And I mean, the fact that we converted or, convinced a doctor practically to become, make some booze in the hills up in the Sierra foothills. I mean, that's pretty awesome. But Emily is more talented than she's going to say. Thinking outside the box is something she does very well. But obviously, like she said, she thinks of things in pieces. I recently was up there, it was a couple months ago because of COVID. How many months ago was it?
I think it was back in February.
Yeah, a couple months ago. I've been alone too long. We tasted through, how many? 200 different lots and samples.
It's a lot.
Yeah, Emily has subcategorized so many things and really broken down. And Jeff don't get me wrong, Jeff's been working here longer than I've been alive, so I can't say too much like to Jeff. He just kind of squashes me back down. But he's been up there for so long, and he's understood those vineyards and the lay of the land so well. And then Emily comes in and takes what he's already broken down to the nth degree. She does it again, and it's not easy to do that. And Emily, I'm really excited because those lots that I was tasting, there's a few that I'm going to be harassing you in marketing about for the next, 6 months until we get something going. So, and the biggest thing I think with Emily that we were so drawn to was not necessarily, her ability to break things down, her just pure educational knowledge and her skill, but the fact that she was passionate about it. I mean, someone to walk away from a medical, field or degree or, future to, make wine, they must really like something about it. And it's awesome just to hear that and know that. So that's probably the biggest thing that, we saw in you. I mean, the degree in the medical thing, that's cool, whatever, but it's all about what's in here.
Oh, that's very sweet. Yeah, I'm really lucky to be with this winery. I have so much freedom, I get all this freedom to try all these different things, and nobody says, no, you shouldn't do that. So I can say something completely off the wall, and as long as I have a background, something to support why I'm doing it, they're like, well, all right, let's try it. So, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it's a face plant, but at least we're trying. It's like Carla was saying, it's a region that my boss has dissected for almost 40 years with different varieties, different soils, different farming techniques. And what I wanted to do was come into a region that had a lot of history and maybe not as much recognition, and try and add even more character to it, add another layer to it, add another story, try and flip winemaking on its head. And, I think I'm doing it. So
keep doing it. I can't keep going.
Yeah. So
what's this? You got the lookbook right here, right?
I got the lookbook here. So we got some cool stuff. This is, this shows a little bit of some of the new things that we've been doing. So you can see on the far left-hand side, there's those two different cover crops. There's the one that looks like grasses, and the one below it that's wildflowers. So the one on the top, that is California native wild grass. And so that helps to dry out the soils. It helps with our erosion, so we don't have, we can maintain our soil health and our soil depth. We're able to give back to the soil what we take from it, because we do take things back out. Every time we have a harvest, we pick the fruit and we're taking something new out of the soil. So you can add fertilizers and you can add things like that, but you can also add something like a native grass, or we also use a legume mix, and that adds back to the soil also. And then the wildflowers.
What kind of soil is up there mostly? What is the most common you see in, there's Amador, and then obviously our vineyards, which are all pretty in line. What is that soil type that you're seeing?
So the soil that we have here, the top soil is only about 18 inches deep, and it's predominantly clay-y. It's and then decomposed granite, and very mineral rich. The very red soils compared to a lot of other regions, and that has to, where there's gold, there's going to be more minerals in the soil, so it makes sense why we would have such iron rich soils up here. So that's predominantly, I have seen there's a couple locations that are a little loamy, but that's not the norm for the region. So, and then we use the wildflowers. The wildflowers are like a natural insectiary, and so they bring positive insects into the vineyard to help us naturally. So like we bring in ladybugs, and ladybugs will eat mites, and they'll eat aphids, and they'll eat thrips, all things that are bad for grapes. And so we're trying to bring in those good beneficials into the region naturally. Well, we still go out into the vineyard. We wear masks now. So normally this trip would be maskless, but the gentleman there with me, that's my new, I'm going to call him the new assistant winemaker, but that's Cooper. Cooper's been my assistant winemaker for over 10 years now. So Coop and I worked together in Washington, and he has been my right-hand man for years and years and years. And then when I came down here, there was an enologist position available, and I told him, hey, you know, you should try and see if you can get that job. And as luck would have it, Coop got that job, and then he moved his family down here, and then I moved down here with my boyfriend, and you know, the rest is history. And Coop recently just got promoted to assistant winemaker, and I couldn't be happier to have him still there with me. I have someone that I can fall back on if I ever have anything happen. I completely trust him and his judgment and his palate, even though I may not tell him that. So I'm glad he's not here. And then the last photo is Deaver Vineyard, but we'll talk more about that and see more pictures of that later. So open up that white wine, get to sipping on it. I know some of you guys already have. I hope you're enjoying it. So what you guys have there, this is all grown in Clarksburg. The Clarksburg region, all of these vineyards that go into here are 100% owned by us. And so we have complete control over the farming of it. Clarksburg is, you can see it's very close to the San Francisco Bay. There's the Sacramento River Delta goes through there, very deep soils. And then the San Francisco Bay cools off the region really nicely. So you have, it's called a diurnal shift, at least that's what I've always called it. So you have warm days and cool nights. When you have something like that, that helps retain your acidity. So it's ideal for white wines. And then the breeze that goes through there keeps it nice and cool. So you end up with white wines that develop more slowly. So the more slowly that your white wines develop, the more flavors you're going to get out of it. Clarksburg's, it's one of my favorite vineyards to go to, because when I was in Washington, vineyards were basically scabland, tumbleweeds, sagebrush, pretty ugly, sandy, dusty, desolate, gross. But then you go into Clarksburg, and I'm sure this is normal for you guys, but there's palm trees there. In Washington, we don't have palm trees. And so you go into this vineyard and it's completely ringed by palm trees, and it's one of the most magical vineyards that I have the chance to work with. I really, really enjoy it. So
so Chenin Blanc, right? That's that's the base of this one. You're explaining the AVA right there, Clarksburg. People probably looking at it like, why is it so far from Napa? You say coastal influence. Is there anywhere else in the world that they might grow Chenin Blanc that it's kind of similar?
Well, Chenin Blanc's traditionally a French variety. If you've ever had Vouvray, Chenin Blanc is Vouvray. It's one of my favorite international wines, because I love the way that Chenin Blanc ages. This wine ages somewhat similarly to that. I really, really like it. This is one of my favorite wines. I used to make a lot of Riesling. So like really, really bright acidity, nice big fleshy mid palate, but I don't get to make Riesling here. So this is my version of making something that has that same sort of flavor profile. So you have the Chenin Blanc that's like the big acidic backbone. That's your lime, mineral, almost a little bit of lychee kind of flavors going on. And then the Viognier adds orange blossom and tangerine, and that adds the viscosity to the mid palate. So you get a nice richness to the wine.
So that Viognier, when you're tasting those lots separately, because it's not a co-ferment, or is it? Did I not know something?
It's not.
So when the Viognier, you're looking for when you pick it, do you want to pick that Viognier early? Do you want it to be a little rounder, fatter? I think the explanation, because Viognier can overpower a wine, but if you know what you're doing, just like any other thing in the world, I mean, you'd be impressed with what you can do with certain things. So what's your plan with that?
Viognier, you're right. Viognier kind of gets a bad rap for being oily and cloying,
yes.
And sometimes even bitter. So Viognier is a really close relative of Muscat, and that's partially why that bitterness, and also why it can be so overpowering. And so that's partly why it's only 15%, because you can still smell and taste the Viognier at that 15%. And the way we ferment it is I pick it a little bit later. I open up the canopy so it actually gets a little bit more caramely colored, and that brings in actually more flavors. So you get a little bit more skin component, a little bit more spice component that comes into it. So it's not a Viognier that I would ever give to you on its own to drink, but it's fermented so it can be 15% of a blend. So I want to make sure that people can still taste a little bit of the Viognier up against that 85% Chenin Blanc.
Hey, Emily, there was a question. Well, what would you, as far as food pairing, what would a complement? What do you recommend?
So my favorite thing to have with this wine is oysters. If you have this wine, you can taste there's almost a little bit of a salinity to it. And so they play really nicely off one another. That's one of my favorite things. I also like it with sushi. I like it with beet salad with a little bit of feta and nice vinaigrette on top. It's pretty good. This is also, you know, I always, with white wines, one of the characteristics I always want to have with them is that you can just have a glass and watch TV too. You know, the wine shouldn't taste as good with food or taste better with food. It should taste just as good on its own. And so the pairing I say for those ones is it pairs well with like the Real Housewives. So you can sit and watch Real Housewives and have a glass and you're going to enjoy it just the same.
That's great.
I think it's awesome. The wine's phenomenal. And the fact that you take the extra step in the vineyard for the Viognier, not a lot of people would do that. They would kind of get the juice, make it, and just, let's blend it, throw it on top kind of thing. But you're prepping that Viognier in the vineyard, farming it a completely different way to ensure it's, you know, perfect melody with the Chenin Blanc. And I don't think really many people do that in blends. A few winemakers do, and I know a lot of the ones that we work with do. But that extra step in the vineyard, and I wish there was a bottle we could show them that you don't do that and you do that because it's a drastic difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. I like to think of winemaking from the beginning. So you start making your wine based on your picking decisions. You know, you do what you can to try and control things in the vineyard, but nature's nature. It's going to do what it wants. And so you just have to work with nature and try and work around it to get what you want. Or like with red wines, I like to work with nature. You know, if this vineyard's giving me these certain flavors, I'm going to add a yeast and add a fermentation protocol that's going to highlight the uniqueness of it. So there's a little bit of both. Sometimes we try and I realized quite a while ago that if you take a wine that wants to be something else and try and shoehorn it into a different style, it tastes wrong. It tastes, you know, it tastes out of place and not from the region. And you know, what could be really quality fruit, if you helped it in the way it wants to go and you try and turn it in a different direction, it fights back to you. So, all right, more photos. I'll go through these ones pretty quickly. Those top left ones, that's Pinot Grigio. I actually just picked Pinot Grigio today, and those photos are from this year. It's also in Clarksburg, really fun vineyard, nice stuff. The next one over, that's last year's rosé. I make a rosé out of Nebbiolo and Grenache.
Oh,
and
that is good stuff.
It is good stuff. So that's the Grenache. You can see it's really, really light hued, and that brings that nice light pink color to the wine. The next one's an aerial photo of the winery. That's the beautiful building I get to come to every day, surrounded by vineyards and oak trees, and in the distance there is the Sierra Nevada foothills. We're only about like an hour and a half from Lake Tahoe. It's definitely mountains out here. And then the picture on the bottom, it is my pride and joy. That is my mechanical harvester. And with labor being so short in vineyards, I lobbied really, really hard to be able to use one of these harvesters. It has an onboard cleaning system. And so it takes the fruit and removes any of the leaves and any of the sticks. And anything that's not supposed to be in those grapes. So every bit of fruit that I get in actually looks just as good as a hand-picked cluster, from something that's machine harvested. So that's my favorite little piece of technology that I think I used last year.
That is a nice piece of technology. I gotta say that in the last probably 5-10 years, the machines, quote unquote, because machine harvesting 15 years ago was very rugged, I'll put it that way. They got the grapes in the bin. Now, like what Emily just said, the technology is so advanced, it's almost better sometimes. And especially if it's a labor shortage, it makes complete sense. And people think, oh, machine picked isn't as good as hand picked. I would disagree. You'd be surprised at a lot of the cult Napa cabs and some of these crazy wines that use the machine because they want to ensure the perfect quality, and the machine can do that. So that is, I just, hope that wasn't too expensive, Emily. That's all.
No, thank you for it.
You're welcome. Anything else you want, just call
No
me
biggie.
and I'll call my dad and we'll get it,
All right. So if you want to know a little bit more about where the heck Amador County is, here's a couple little maps for you. Most people don't know where we are, and I understand that. We are one of the bottom 10 populated, maybe bottom 5 populated counties in all of California. There's only about 35,000 people that live here. It is darn small. And so you can see where Sacramento, it has a little dot going towards Sacramento. We're a little east of Sacramento. And then on a close up there, our vineyards are located on the northern, northwestern side. There's 3 different growing regions here. There's the Sierra Foothills AVA, there's the Shenandoah Valley of California AVA, and then there's the Fiddletown AVA, or AVA's American Viticultural Area, or it's basically an assigned growing region of, it has a distinct uniqueness to it, and that's how you can get an AVA status. And so that's where our winery is located.
Hey, Emily, there was a question we were talking about. Could you, before we get into the Barbera, they were asking about the rosé. The rosé, and also, did you give your machine harvester a name?
Oh, so the rosé, that's an easier question. So the rosé, I believe you guys do have that in Florida. Is that correct, Julie?
Yes.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
So there's only a handful of states that get that wine. So we take requests from our sales team every year, and whatever they say that they're going to sell for the year, that's all we produce. And so it's a really limited wine. However, it does have a lot of popularity because it's a very unique rosé. It's right around 50% Nebbiolo, 50% Grenache. Again, a little bit of winemaking goes into it. We bring the Nebbiolo in and process it right away. The Grenache, we bring it in and we actually leave it on the skins for about 24 hours, because Grenache is more thiolic or more aromatic, has more flavors in it in the skins. So we give it more skin contact time to really lift the color and the aromatics, and it just has a lot of complexity to it. The Nebbiolo brings in grapefruit characteristics. Grenache brings in watermelon, strawberry, basil. So when you put it all together, you get all of those different flavors and components. So
Emily, we'll have to follow up, Julie, because we'll have to get some of the rosé for Drew. I know it's limited, but let's add it to our list, and
okay.
That's why we're here, and to offer
Sorry,
something
guys.
special. So now we'll get some, and we'll get it to Drew, and we'll make sure that we showcase it and get it in there. So
we could get you guys down there. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
So.
And listen, if you can get some extra sandwiches for Steve, I'll give you my frosé recipe, which is quite popular.
So we have the Barbera on the screen, Emily. Barbera is an Italian varietal. Obviously, my uncle and Jeff thought, hey, let's plant this out there. But Barbera was kind of Nebbiolo's little stepbrother back in Piedmont. That and Gavi were always kind of considered the peasant grape, or people that drink Barbera and Gavi aren't that great. Now people are realizing the ability this grape has. In Italy, you'll see $100, $200 Barberas. It's unbelievable. And we planted this out there, and I would argue, and you might argue back, this is one of the best wines, if not the best wine out of the TVO line. I mean, I have never poured this for somebody and then be like, oh, I don't want that wine. Because if they like light reds, they'll go out right at it. If they like heavier reds, hey, I can drink this. They'll go right at it. They don't like reds, they'll drink it. So explain to me and everybody, how'd you make a Barbera from Northern Italy taste so good in the rocky foothills of Tahoe?
Magic. So that's part of it. We have three different ranches where we grow Barbera, and of those we have 3 different clones, and all of which are really good and unique. Some of the really older clones are just as good. We have one we don't know what the actual clone is, so we just call it the Viognier clone. Because we have no clue what it is. We planted it so long ago that I think we lost the paperwork of what we bought. So it's just called the Viognier clone at this point. And my approach to this wine was that I wanted to make a wine that spoke both to Old World and New World. And so in doing that, I realized when I go out, I'm competing for shelf space with Italian Barberas. And so I needed to bring in something that was a little bit more unique. New World tends to be very fruit forward, softer, cherry driven. Old World tends to be a little bit more rustic, a little bit more flavor complexity. We may even call it rough around the edges. And so to achieve that extra component to this wine, we fermented some of the wines the same way we would normally do, where, you know, we bring it in, we crush it into the tank, we leave it on the skins for about 15 to 21 days. And then one of the extra lots, we actually left on the skins for 90 days. A typical wine spends somewhere between 7 and 30 days on the skins. The idea that we're leaving it on the skins longer, you might think that we're bringing more tannin or astringency. But what's really happening when we're doing that is that those tannin molecules are actually binding up and becoming bigger. So if you have a taste of wine that's young and tastes a little bit sharp or bitter, it's because those tannin molecules are short. So when they hit your palate, they're sharp. The longer you make those chains, the softer they are when they hit your palate. And so the longer we leave it on the skins, the longer those chains get and the more complex they are. So when we do it, we bring in, overall there's a more tannin, but it hits the palate more velvety, less astringent, more mouth coating. You're gonna smell it, you're gonna get a little bit of dried herb component to it. Some of that extended maceration comes in there. And then it also brings in, the longer you leave it on the skins, it actually brings in an oak component, even though you're not actually aging it on oak. So we're able to add less wood to the wine, and wood that highlights the flavors as opposed to trying to add that complexity and forcing it to have it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it does. And I think the fact that you're able to capture the earthiness or those herbal flavors, those are tones that are hard to, I know. Oh, there it goes, bye-bye. Bye-bye. And still bring up the bright fruit forwardness of a Barbera, because like you said, the domestically especially, they're almost too fruit forward sometimes. And you bring that rusticness in and you highlight Amador with those earthy tones, and the proper use of wood. Is some people, I mean, Napa Valley, we had this crazy idea in the 90s, like more wood is better, more alcohol. And then we realized, what are we doing? We're destroying and covering up so much. What's the alcohol on this wine?
I think this one's somewhere between 14.5 and maybe even 15.
14.5 on this one. Yeah, 14.5.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you could taste any of that. And all the wines I think that you're doing, you're dialing it back correct with the alcohol, or at least doing a great job hiding it, I should say, which isn't a bad thing. But I think what you did with this wine is you're able to capture the old world palate and still keep the untrained or the new world palate interested. And that's hard to do. In fact, a gentleman by the name of Piero Antinori, we were talking with him, and he planted Sangiovese in Napa Valley. And I asked him, I said, what do you regret? Do you regret anything? He's like, well, planting an Italian varietal in California. And I said, well, we got Italian varietals. He's like, yeah, they're so-so. He's like, but the Barbera, that's a good one. And I was like, oh, so you got one person's approval from the old world. That's a pretty big opinion. But I think this wine, it over delivers too. I think the price, it's unbelievable. So.
Yeah.
You know, it's great. Emily, you know, I know we're going to get into the TDOs in, the Devers in, but you talk about a wine that is pretty special. And, you know, like we talked about, you know, we entertain a lot and you know, try a lot of red wines, white wines. But when you pull out a bottle of wine like this, and I've had it open for like over an hour, so it's opened up and it's developed. It tastes totally different from when I opened it up an hour ago. But I think it's something special. So you talk about bringing out a bottle of wine to a party or an event, and not to mention that it's a top 100 wine in the world, but, you know, for the price point and everything else, and to pull out a Barbera, it's truly special. I mean, and that's why we're fortunate with Drew, as we talked about, that he's bringing in some of these gems that you're not going to find every day. And but credit, Emily, to yourself and what you've done with this wine, because it's truly amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So Emily, I'm looking at the slide. What are those green grapes up in the top left? Are those oh no, those are. What are those?
Those are limes.
You're on limes in the vineyard now. What's going on here?
Yeah, we've got lime. We have all sorts of fruit trees up at the home vineyard, and so.
Why do we do that, or why do you guys do that? Just.
I think it was just they were all originally planted there. So there's limes and there's seedless table grapes and there's figs. There's all sorts of things growing up there, and they looked so good. And I picked those two for gin and tonics this week, and I figured it was only fair to give them a little credit, right?
Right. Yeah, that was you could have gone the real pun round and like, oh, to make it look like we're at somebody's house, like your home in the home vineyard.
Well, it is kind of someone's home, so.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
The abandoned home on the property is very interesting.
It's very interesting, but it's a lot of fun. There's a large home, so the family that originally started the winery did build a home on the property, and so this home, it is huge. It's about 6,000 square feet, just this giant home. Very luxurious, with an in-ground pool in the back, all the bells and whistles, and so this the home vineyard is planted right behind the house there. So.
Hey, Emily, there was a question about the fires and where you are there in Amador. I know down in Napa, Carlo, I know there's been some fires that we've been, well, not us impacted, but some wineries there. But how about Amador, Emily? Are you guys safe? There was a question from Stephen Moore.
That's a great question. So we are safe. We're about 85 miles away from the fires. We are getting a lot of smoke. You know, I'm looking out my windows and I can't really see off the property line of my house. I live on an acre and I can't really see beyond that. So the air quality index up here is about 400, which is quite dangerous. We have to wear N95 respirators when we leave the house and when we're outside at the winery. So that's not good, but we're just kind of taking it day by day. There's not much we can do about it. So we're just looking at the options that we have to mitigate it and keep everybody safe for now. And we are in a high risk fire area, so we're trying to make sure that we're prepared in case something does happen. So
now, what are they saying about the wildfires? Are they affecting the flavors of the wine? What are they saying? I know there's been some tests and they've been talking about it. What have you been hearing out in California?
Yeah, so for us out here, I haven't done any testing yet. So it's a thing called smoke taint. When there's smoke around the wines, smoke can soak into the grapes, and it's really, really difficult to get out. The hard thing about it is it can get into the grapes, and you get it into the wine, you ferment it, and it might taste fine, but as the wine ages, that flavor can come out. So once you get it in the bottle and they age it 2 years, it could smell like a wet ashtray. And so it's a really, really tough thing to do. So especially this year, I think we're gonna have to do it. I know we're already doing some testing in Napa. And then we're gonna be starting to do some testing. If this smoke hangs in here for a few more days, we're gonna be testing a lot out here too.
Yeah, I mean, we've rinsed the grapes literally with water, like hose them down before we crush them, because like Emily said, as long as that smoke taint or the ash, those little tiny particles doesn't get inside of the grape, you have a shot to prevent any of the smoke taint and able to go through the winemaking process fairly normally. But yeah, we will be doing, there's a lot of testing. UC Davis, all the schools around us have been going crazy thinking of ways to do it. But like Emily said earlier, nature is nature. So you go ahead and fight against it and you're probably going to lose. So what we're doing is the best we can. And I think the wines that will be released legally will not, they can't have any smoke stain in them. The TTB just won't let it happen. Everything gets tested. So people are like, well, the wine tastes like smoke. I'm like, I highly doubt it. Now in age, maybe like Emily was saying, it could come out, but it will not be at a level that is harmful, dangerous, or hindering to the wine profile. So it's something we live with. Now we're in our third big fire year in a row, pretty much. And I remember the first one, it was pretty hectic. Nowadays, I mean, the fire's burning probably 5 miles from me, maybe 10, and nobody's panicking because I think what we do and our people do, not only at the winery or at the community, but the winery especially, is the preparedness and how you guys take it so seriously. And it's like clockwork, and it's important for us to work with Mother Nature, not work against her. So.
Yeah. We're doing the best we can.
Emily, wait, where'd you go?
Oh, there you are.
What is that machine thing? Are you standing next to what is that? A little tank, it looks like, maybe? Who is that?
Oh, so really that's one of my new toys this year. So that's a concrete fermenter.
Why use
concrete? So I got this tiny little concrete fermenter. I'm going to be trialing some Viognier in it. We do a small production Viognier here at the winery that doesn't go into the Chenin Viognier, and it's a skin contact, 48 to 72 hour skin contact. And now we're going to ferment it in some concrete and some neutral barrels and see what happens.
Wasn't this you and Cooper's little idea? Because I remember at the tasting, I think Cooper was in my ear about this pretty hard. He's like talking about like, hey, this Viognier I just thought of, And I'm like, hey, what?
That sounds about right.
You're right.
Yeah. And then the grapes on the bottom there, that was Zin. Right in the middle, that's Deaver Vineyard. So the next wine we're going to be tasting, we've been doing some educational videos, and that's one of the days when we were shooting out there. And now we get to dive into one of my favorite wines that I get to make. I love all the wines that we make because you have to, I guess, as a parent of the wine, you like them all. But secretly deep down, we all have a favorite, right? So this is my favorite wine to make. Deaver Vineyard was planted in 1881. So when those people came out for that gold rush, this is one of those vineyards that they planted. Out in that area, I know I touched on clones earlier. This is a clone that we don't know what it is because this came from someone's home in Italy, and they came over with it, stuck it in the ground, and let it propagate from there. Since then, we have assigned different clones to varieties based on the different characteristics that they show, whether it be cluster size, berry size, how vigorous the variety is, different flavor components that come through in them. So you can have, say, a cab of multiple different clones and they all taste completely different. So that's really what I'm saying when I mean clone. It just means it's remarkably different from another plant or another cutting of the same variety. So this vineyard here was planted in 1881, still producing fruit today, which is really unusual. It's on its own roots. Most older wineries were completely decimated from a bug called phylloxera. And I think part of why this is surviving to even now is that we do have these clay-rich soils. And so phylloxera doesn't survive as well and doesn't move as quickly in clay. Clay, sand, things like that. Or if you have a hard freeze, it also doesn't survive as well, which we don't get that as often anymore out here, but I know that it used to be more common for there to be snow and freeze out in this area. As Carla was saying, this vineyard was a big favorite of Bob Trinchero. So we started making this wine at Terra in, I believe it was 96, 98. But prior to that, it was the Sutter Home Reserve Zinfandel. And it's fun to taste this wine dating back so far because it is so unique compared to other Zinfandels. I think a lot of us associate Zinfandel with being big and jammy and overripe, high alcohol, sweet. And this completely bucks that trend. That really Amador County as a whole bucks that trend, but this wine stands alone as a Zinfandel that can be aged. So I've tasted Zinfandel from this vineyard from the Sutter Home Reserve going back as far as the early 80s, I think late 70s. And it still tastes beautiful and it has so much life to it. And it has to do with the acidity to it. So you can taste this wine and you can taste that it has a brightness to the mid palate. Almost, it might even taste a little lean. Some people will perceive it as leanness, but it means that when you have an acidity like that, it's going to mature more slowly. So I saw someone ask if we produce all of our own vineyard vines. Is that right?
All our own grapes.
Yeah. And so this is one of 2 vineyards that I source from. Everything else is all owned by us. So really predominantly, I think it's 98% of the wine that I produce is owned by us. Deaver and another vineyard called Cowan are the only 2 that are not estate. And it's because Deaver is very, very old, planted in 1881, and Cowan is a 90-year-old vineyard. So we don't own any vineyards that are that old, and they're so remarkably different and unique and have so much character that I want to continue making them. And so we get to continue making those.
This vineyard is beyond special. And I mean, the family, the Deaver family that owns it, to give you an idea how long they've been there, Ken Deaver, the person who my Uncle Bob first connected with through Daryl Cordy, his brother was actually killed in the last legal shootout up there in Amador County. That's back in the Western days. you get that edge to it. I mean, and you're looking at these vines, and if you go to the vineyard, it's crazy to see where the vines literally have just slowly disintegrated. I have pictures walking through it where you see it, the vines they're old, and then they look like it's like a timeline of the Homo sapien just going this way though, dying. But these vines may produce 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 clusters. But like Emily was saying, I would call it elegance, not leanness. The elegance and the acidity that this brings up, but it still has that rustic earthiness that Amador offers versus the classic, more Lodi Zin. I almost said gin. Now you have me thinking of gin and tonics instead of Zin.
Sorry.
The more jammy, fruit forward. This is the kind of Zin that I'm personally drawn to, is that this more rustic, earthy, natural tones to it. But this is something that's very special. 131 years old. You want to talk about someone that's seen some things. I mean, this thing has lived through everything.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, it's definitely been through a lot. It's such a fun vineyard to go through. And I like to say about this wine, you're almost tasting history in a glass because it's so different from others in Zinfandel. You know, you can taste the Wild West almost in it. You taste the rustic, you taste the dusty tannins. You taste something that's a little bit different from others in Zinfandel that's in the world. And this is a fun wine to bring in. It makes about 1 ton per acre is what it produces. So really small production. We bring it in, ferment it in a tank. I like to ferment in tanks because you get a more controlled fermentation than you do if you were to do it in an open top or into bins or smaller vessels. And depending on what the juice tastes like, we change the yeast up. So there's all sorts of different yeasts that you can use to ferment, and they will highlight different characteristics in the wine. Some add more color, some add more tannin, some add more fruitiness, some add more blue or red fruit. It's just a lot of fun, and it's always delicious.
Hey Emily, a question came up as far as, do we produce all our own grapes?
Predominantly. We produce most of our own grapes are grown on site.
Yeah, Jeff, she got me before. Thank you on that
Pay
question.
attention, Jeff. Come on, you got to follow us now.
Okay.
No, it's
Great.
remarkable. I think the fact that Terra de Oro, I mean, yes, the Deaver vineyard is not technically ours, but we're talking about a vineyard or a program that is almost all estate, and at the price point, I'll get an estate winery would be like Harlan or Bryant family. Estate has a legal definition, and that the fact that we're able to control the process, Emily's allowed to go in the vineyard and make these decisions, because when you deal with growers, we've had great relationships with all our growers since, I mean, with Deaver, I mean, that was a handshake for, I think, ever. We didn't really have that in contract officially for a long time. But growers usually do what is right by the grower. They need to make money. They need to do what's right by the crop. When you're in control of that vineyard yourself as the producer, the winemaker, you can get ahead of the game and do certain things in the vineyard that a lot of people can't if they have to source the grapes to buy them. So the fact that we're able to control about 90% of this program's viticulture in the vineyard is, I mean, an X factor would be an understatement. So.
Hey, Emily, there was one other question earlier I missed. Have you had any experience with Virginia wines?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, I have. I know. I haven't made any, but I've definitely tasted some. So when I met a gentleman once, and we got onto the conversation of the Norton grape, which is it has been one of my least favorite grapes for a long, long time. And this gentleman said, "Oh no, I will prove you wrong." And so he sent me Norton from Virginia, and it's still not my favorite, but it was definitely the best Norton I've ever had, and one of the better representations of that variety that I've had before.
Nice.
I do need to make it back there. I do see that it's so beautiful. I want to make sure that I check it out one of these days. I like to explore different wine regions, so
Great.
I don't want to get stuck in my own area too much. So
yeah,
Cab Franc, huh?
Cab Franc, Virginia Cab Franc forever. Yeah.
I've had some Long Island Cab Franc that I was very impressed with. I mean, feel free to send us wine. I mean, we're more than happy to taste it. So. We'll make a trade.
Yeah, there you go. A wine swap.
Yes. Well, any other questions? Julie, what do we have from here? Are we done, or?
No, for here it's all you, so I'm gonna hand it right back to you, Jeff.
Oh, great. So I'm not sure if Drew is still on, but first of all, I want to say, Emily, thank you. You got so much going on out there right now with Harvest, and Carlo, you got your hands full with Harvest and your two little ones. So we appreciate that you guys would take the time to do this. And to the UVA group, this is special. And with our relationship with Drew, we do these. We usually do it for a large group. But when Drew asked us to do it for you guys, we thought it was something special, and we wanted to do this. There's something else. And I know a lot of folks have been over to the Swann Ave Market, and I know he's opening up his new place in West Chase. So Delicious, I think it is. So he's in the process of opening that. He's also doing a program. Julie, I think it's the Hyde House. I think there's something he's doing up there, but right. So this is something also to let you know that we sat down with Drew, and we said that we would be able to do something unique for him. This is something he's going to implement in the month of September, and this piece came from a wine barrel. And they actually engraved it on the actual wine barrel that he's going to have an area within his store that's going to be for 90+ rated wines only. Very limited, very select, very affordable, that we're going to be able to offer him some gems, something unique and different. And what's great about it also is this piece itself, the base itself, we couldn't find a base to hold this wine barrel, the top of it. And Carlo actually, if I'm not wrong, Carlo, I think you helped us, and you and your brother put this together and created this thing. It's pretty cool. And with
we welded it.
right? You guys welded it, put it all together, right?
Well, I welded it. He told me like that was okay to weld or whatever, but he's one of our engineers, so he's pretty busy. So me bothering someone who builds wineries for us about welding a half U-shaped Berlin stand, he kind of looked at me. He's like, "Okay, I'll approve your design, but I'm not going to do it for you." But no, it's a great idea. I love the idea. In fact, you've got Julie now sparking so many more ideas, which entails her to call me to get more ideas. So now I'm an amateur professional welder by trade. But yeah, I think in these times, especially pivoting, thinking of these types of things, I love it. I love the creativity and the fact that almost the gloves are taken off. It's kind of, let's figure something out to do something more for the people that support me, our wines and our family. Please don't ask me for like 100 of these. I mean, my wife would kill me sitting out here and welding all day, but we're more than happy to do whatever it takes, go the extra mile for you guys out there that are enjoying the wines and supporting us. I mean, thank you. That's all I could say to that is thank you, thank you, thank you.
No, thank you, Carlo, and thank you, Drew. And this is something that, and we're going to do a raffle. We're going to do a raffle, at the location. And as you buy some of the wines, they're going to raffle off a large format. We're going to get a book from the winery that talks about the history and everything. So some special things that we're doing with Drew. And as you mentioned earlier, we want to be able to offer something unique that you can't find at any retail, chain or other outlets. So that's part of the experience. And we're fortunate that we can do this here locally. And, with our relationship, it's pretty special. So, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Carlo. Julie, thank you for putting this together with Drew. And
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And hope to send a lot of books out. Maybe we could figure something out to get you guys all a book. But the wine, that's a raffle prize. I can't help you there. So, and that wine, I'm going to see if we can have my old man sign it. That'd be my dad, Roger. And then the other old guy, his twin, well, they're not twins. They're complete polar opposites if you look at their height. My Uncle Bob, get Emily to sign it, and then I'm going to sign it. So this is really cool. This is the first UVA alumni I've ever done. In fact, when I was requested on this, I was like, why does the University of Virginia want to talk to me? I don't understand. They don't want to talk to me. They want to talk to Emily. I was like, oh, that's what makes sense. So thank you guys for this opportunity. And yeah, thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Carlo. Thank you to everyone. And have a great night. And, be safe. And
yeah, this has been tremendous. From the UVA club, we're happy to see each other. And, I guess your passion and your knowledge is very much appreciated. And, it's heartfelt when I say, these wines are delicious, and I look forward to drinking them frequently going forward. And I encourage everyone to buy all their wine from Drew. So again, thank you to all. I think a very successful event and much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Really appreciate it. Thank you. Great to see a woman winemaker.
You're welcome.